an audition. Bring it with you to your first rehearsal. Knowing, not to kind of like dress up like a cat and do anything for the Lion King, which I have seen, believe me or not. But the idea of having something that connects you right away to that story. And that David, as directors, can look at you and be like, oh, you're doing some homework. Interesting. So that's something to be thinking about, even when you're teaching, right? Encourage your students to do some homework, to come in prepared. Not only in homework, like research, the history of Memphis, Tennessee, and race relations, everything. Just find out a little nugget. Maybe it's about the music, right? Maybe it's about the subculture, maybe it's the food, okay? But we know as actors, right, what do props do for you as an actor? What does a prop give you as an actor?
Character.
Helps you character, exactly. Exactly. And theater is about telling stories, right? If it's process drama or if it's straight on theater, we're telling stories. We're telling truthful stories. Fiction or not, they're truthful. So that idea of kind of being prepared, whatever that means to you, when you go on your job interview, you want to make sure that you're prepared. So Teach NYC is a website where you can see the postings. For those of you that graduate, you can send me your resume. Joe Salvatore sends me updated resumes, and I will send the resumes out to schools on your behalf. I cannot promote any one person, but I can say, here's some people to consider. The schools make the choices. I don't do any hiring. Okay. You had a question?
The substitute teacher list that you recommend to get on, is that also at Teach NYC?
I believe it is. Anybody done it yet?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, Teach NYC, you can go right on there. Yeah.
Are charters constrained by that hiring freeze?
No.
And do they post?
I believe they do. Unfortunately, hat off, there is a tension of the charter schools and the New York City public schools, even though they're all New York City students. So currently, my office isn't allowed to serve PD for the teachers of charter schools, even though they're serving New York City students. We're working on that. And the reality is why? So do you guys know the numbers? Do you know how many certified theater teachers there are in New York City? Should I not share that number? There's not a lot, let's just say that. There's not a lot of arts teachers in general. But those that are, there's a lot of principals that are supporting, and we got more and more principals every day that are thinking about this. And one of the reasons that they're thinking about this is this whole thing called the Common Core. Is anybody familiar with the Common Core? Raise your hand if you've heard about the Common Core. Okay. So the Common Core, and I've got some handouts for you guys. Maybe we could just look at these now. The Common Core, just getting a little slightly academic on you for a second, because I think this is going to be very powerful for you to be aware of. The Common Core are the national standards. The new standards are being rolled out by the National Governors Association. You should definitely go online and check it out. Look up Common Core. Okay? This will hit you if you're teaching in New York City schools. And by the way, we're talking about how to get a job. If you can come in and you can reference quality review, Common Core, these are things that principals are being asked to use to evaluate and assess their schools, right? You guys been reading the papers about the whole teacher grades, right? And there's a lawsuit whether to reveal teachers, grading of teachers. Okay. So just like restaurants were getting a grade a while back, they're doing the same thing for teachers, and they're talking about whether to post them or not, so that parents can see the grade. I want you guys to look at this just for a minute. We're not going to take a lot of time on this, but I think it is important. Does everybody have one? I made like 60. It should be enough, hopefully. If not, just maybe share, look over your shoulder. I'll grab this one here. There's another one here. Okay. So I want to just take a second, look at this here, because I think you might be surprised. When you guys hear standards, right, what happens? Yeah, right, hair goes up the back of the neck. Very rarely are they standards in the arts. Right? We got the blueprint, which is a curriculum guide. There are state standards, and there are some New York City standards, but this is a new national standard that they're rolling out, and it's only for English language arts, and another one for math. Under the ELA one here is also social studies, and they're calling it technical subjects. Now that's kind of heady, but if you look at this, I think you might actually get a little excited, just a little bit, because if you look at what they say, the very top it says college and career readiness, right? They're trying to prepare kids. I didn't write this, and I didn't drink the Kool-Aid. I just think there's some good stuff in here. So the first one is they demonstrate independence. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just want you to hear a little bit. Students can, without significant scaffolding, comprehend and evaluate complex text across a range of types and disciplines, and they can construct effective arguments and convey intricate or multifaceted information. Later on, more broadly, they become self-directed learners, seeking out and using references or resources to assist them, including teachers, peers, etc. And buried in there, it talks about asking relevant questions. This idea of demonstrating independent learners, do we want that? Yeah? So to the point of that, they're getting engaged, you guys are getting engaged, right? Self-directed learning, where you are teachers facilitator. Again, this is not for the arts, but it speaks to us. The next one, build strong content knowledge. Without even reading the paragraph, give me an example. What would be strong content knowledge in theater? What do you guys think? Strong content knowledge. Give me an example.
Well, one would be history. Theater history.
Theater history. Great. Content knowledge of theater history. Yeah.
Since we create characters,
Sorry?
being able to create characters.
Good. Being able to create characters based on a text. So content, right? So creating a character would be more of the making, right? But what is the content? Theater vocabulary, right? Stage directions, things like that. Is that what you're going to say? Stage directions. Yeah, stage directions, right? Okay. And look at the last line. They refine and share their knowledge through writing and speaking. You guys ever done a journal? You sick of them? Have you ever had your students create journals? Right? Sometimes they're a waste, but sometimes if they're with prompts and there's real direction, it can be incredible. Very revealing for yourself, especially as an actor, but even as a student, right? And look at that last one, through writing and speaking. Have you guys seen that before in a standard? Speaking, right? Look at the top, writing, speaking, listening, right? You guys probably remember in Acting 101, what is acting?
Reacting.
Acting, reacting, listening, right? Okay? It's worth playing off of somebody else, unless you're doing a one-person show, and even then you're doing it in your own head. They respond to the varying demands of audience, task, purpose, and discipline. Look at the second sentence. They appreciate nuances such as how the composition of an audience should affect tone when speaking, and how the connotations of words affect meaning. That could be in one of our texts, right? Right? Nuance, audience. They're not intending it to be a performing audience. They're meaning the reader. But there's room here for us to live. And just so you guys know, there's really some opportunity, is I've been working with network leaders. Are you familiar with the whole structure? Have you guys gone over this? The new structure of the DOE, clusters and networks and all this stuff? No? Have you heard of regions and districts?
Yeah.
Those are things of the past. Now there's networks of schools. And each network is about 25 schools. It's somewhat arbitrary, it's not geographic. Okay? And within those networks, they all feed into one cluster. It's more than you need to know, but just so you're aware of it in case it comes up, that there are 6 clusters, and then within each cluster, there's 20 networks, and then there's 25 schools. And that will add up to about 1,600 schools. The point being, I've been talking to people at the cluster level and the network level, which is decision makers. Right? Not even principals, but the people who are serving 25 principals. And I've been showing them this and aligning it with the blueprint. It's an exercise I will give to David and Jonathan, a cheat sheet, that I encourage you guys to start thinking about. Because it'll help inform your work. If you look at these 7, what they're calling capacities, is this what we want from our students? Do we want them to be independent learners? Do we want them to have strong content knowledge? We want them to respond to audience tasks, right? What's a performance task in theater? You guys are teaching. You know what a performance task is? What's that? It could be presenting a scene.
Memorizing lines.
It could be memorizing a line. A performance task is a form of assessment. You guys haven't done I don't know if you've talked about assessment yet. Some of you have? Yes? No? Okay, so as a teacher, you're assessing. As a director, you're assessing, right? And to assess is just to kind of see where they're at this point. So in rehearsal, you run something, you stop, you give notes, I make an adjustment, I continue on. Same thing in a class, right? You teach the grapevine, kids kind of get it, try it again. You can do a group assessment, I can do an individual assessment, right? Okay? assess comes from the word, from the phrase to sit next to. To assess is to sit next to. So it's not a harsh judgment. It's just, finding out where you're at. So a great assessment for you guys while you're teaching is to ask, stop in the middle of an exercise and just say, do you, what's your name?
Alyssa.
Alyssa. What are we talking about right now?
Assessment.
Assessment, wow. So I can assess that Alyssa is kind of with me, okay? I might ask someone else who might have just been like, is it 6, what time is it now? And that would have been fine, but that's where that person is at.